Amaju Paynik joins us this morning. He's the Executive Chairman of Delta State Sports Commission. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much.
But if you look at how we perform the sports, I mean, yes, people may be quick to forget. We may be quick to focus on politics, economy, business, but sports is also very key. What's your assessment? How have we performed so far?
Yeah, I think this is one area the president has been faultless.
Faultless?
I can tell you that for sure,
Well,
I'm privileged to have so much information about the president, meaning very well for sports development for this country. And for you to make any impact meaningful in sports, you must first be passionate about sports development. I give examples with states that are doing very well in sports. For example, in Lagos State. If you look at the governor of Lagos State, he is so passionate about sports. If you sit with him and when he's analyzing sports, analyzing football, you'll be amazed. He plays squash, he plays tennis, he plays billiard and snooker, he plays football. So he feels it. He knows it. He knows the dynamics, the theatrics. So come to Delta. My governor plays tennis, he plays squash. As a village boy, he swims. He does everything. So you must be very passionate about sports. Now, look at the president. At least 4 times in a week, he plays table tennis. He plays squash. And again, a village boy, very good swimmer. So for you to make any meaning in sports development, excuse me, you must first have that passion. I've always believed in passion. As I've always been very, very strong on being passionate about sports rather than skill. Because passion, like I keep saying, is a psychological war within yourself to succeed. And the president really, I give you an example. In 2009, Nigeria hosted the Under-17 World Cup. At the verge of when the time was coming, FIFA was very, very uncomfortable with that preparation. And FIFA actually wanted to take the event to Egypt at that time. The president, then he was vice president. He came up, he took it upon himself and went to the president and convinced the president that, listen, I can do this. And the president navigated the entire country, made sure all the governors had all their preparation 100%, gave FIFA, the leadership of FIFA, so much confidence. And at the end of the day, Nigeria hosted that event. So many people know about his involvement in that event. In 2010, he went to South Africa. He was in South Africa for the Nations Cup. I was privileged to be where he was addressing the players. He was calling them by their first names. And even though Nigeria did not make any impact in that event, but his presence meant a lot to the players. Because when we were talking, they said they've never seen this kind of president. He was calling them, so I didn't even know he knew my name. So this is somebody that has been watching them from their clubs, from playing in the national team, from going through the ranks, maybe their juniors.
And besides, I can't have all those aides and not know all these names. What are they there for? But let's take a look at this report, but let's highlight some parts of what has happened in sports, and we'll come back to this.
Have won the Orange Africa Cup of Nations.
If there's anything that has given Nigeria the most positive image in the eye of the international community within the last 2 years, it's the global sporting events the country has featured in.
To Mr. President, Joseph Yobo has the trophy. Nigeria are champions of Africa.
The success of the Super Eagles at the 2013 African Cup of Nations in South Africa towers above all others in terms of the glory brought to the country.
Nigeria's 3rd time as African champions.
However, another glance across the landscape of Nigeria's sports reveals a litany of woes and disappointments that have raised more questions than can be answered.
Set.
Who gets the start? A Fraser Price.
Nigeria's participation at the 2012 London Olympic Games is one many would want to forget in a hurry, as the country's contingents return home empty-handed. Its Paralympic contingent made up for that failure with a stellar performance to return smiles to the faces of already demoralized Nigerians.
It is only administration that persons with disability went to Paralympic and came back and was received by the presidency. Other times is once they receive the able-bodied athletes, they can say, okay, some disabled persons are with them, okay, give them one naira. But this man personally welcomed persons with disability after their Paralympic performances, and all of us know what he did for them.
Stunned by the London disappointment, President Goodluck Jonathan swung into action with the hosting of the Sports Summit in a bid to address the issues hindering the development of sport in Nigeria.
Okay, well, there you have some of the high points with midterm assessment in sports. But even if you look at some of these, I mean, there are those who say, other than ensuring that the allocations of the funds get to the federations or the NFF or the national bodies, what else do they do? I mean, is there any special program or national plan that we have in sports that we're pursuing through?
Yeah, the president's strategy has been very practical, very technical, and very tactical. First, he understands that the leadership of the Sports Commission has to be an egghead in sports administration, and that's why he brought in a minister young, full of zeal to succeed. That was the first step, and it was the right step. The second thing he did was he made sure that he was going to key into youth development. He organized a summit when he saw that we didn't perform well in the Olympics. And of course, that summit dwelled on youth development, catching them young, going back to the basics, going back to the grassroots. A lot of people did not know, and that's why Nigeria was accorded that privilege of hosting the African Athletics Championship, where a lot of stars were discovered. Stars discovered, I can tell you that they're not going to make an impact in the next Olympics, but in 8 years' time, I can tell you, from those stars that were discovered in Ayak, and that's one of the reasons Nigeria lobbied and got that.
Is it not
based on the fallout from the summit.
Okay.
Based on the fallout from the summit, a lot of things changed. Funding, I mean, before now we used to hear, oh, bonuses have not been paid, flights have not been returned. All the national teams were qualified for the various World Cups. All the national teams. And issues of funding, you know, which was a major key, a major talking point in that summit. I think it's a thing of the past under this present administration. He understands that you cannot isolate sports from funding. You know.
The summit, sorry, because I'm trying to see how much we can cover. The summit, is it also as an offshoot of what we saw about the rhythm and play, where he has made sports and physical education compulsory in our schools?
Yeah, let me tell you about the rhythm and play. The rhythm and play thing is unconsciously priming and conditioning these youths, our young ones, to have a role in sports, to have a future in sports. It's like when you're in secondary school, you have later on the British Society, you have rhythm and play clubs, whereby the target is, the catchment target is like 2 million Nigerians in 2 years. Form various clubs, whereby they'll be provided with first-class facilities in their schools, technical training. By doing that, they're just looking at getting, even if it's less than 1% of these 2 million Nigerian youths within the next 2 years, that we have sports as, you know, as sports as what they want to do in the future, you know, an area you can discover some in football, in athletics, in various meets, you know. So I think, and when you are targeting the youth, you are taking the youth off the streets, you are taking the youth off the creeks, you are reducing kidnapping, you are reducing, in fact, you cannot quantify the advantages. I can tell you that for free because I'm in sports administration and I know what it does. Because look at the youth you pick from the streets, the youth you pick from the creeks. If those youths were not picked from the street and given a life in sports, where do you think they will be?
I think another thing that we should, or another group of people we might be leaving out, are the disabled group of athletes. Because I have not heard anything since that time.
Yeah.
Remember how when they went to the Paralympics in London and came back with victory, they said that, look, all that they have been able to achieve, they did by themselves, if not anything else. I mean, and maybe the only reason why they were remembered was because they did come home with victory, with as many gold medals as they could garner. So have we been able to mainstream them into regular sports, or are we doing something different for them?
Yeah, I want to disagree the mind from that because I don't think it's completely true what he said, because they were prepared by the National Sports Commission through the various federations. They were given all what they were privileged to be given, and maybe not as much as the able-bodied, athletes. Now they've come back, they recognize them. Like I told you, the president is very passionate about sports development. He immediately recognized them, he gave them honors, and they've now had it so good. And today, like I keep saying, the president's impact in sports, he believes in excelling in obscurity. Because to him, there are so many other things that are more pressing. But he has never relegated sports. So those of us in sports, every discerning sports administrator knows that he has made huge impact. Forget the AFCON victory. Even though we know sports, there's an element of luck. His name is Good Luck. So you must always give that to him.
Doesn't mean we win Confederations Cup.
No. I'm not going to say about that. What about the athletics version of AFCON, the African Championship? We've forgotten so soon. Nigeria won it. And the last time we won it was how many years ago? In Port Novo last year. We won the IAC. You can keep going. And I can tell you, if you look at the hubs, Cross River State, for example, Calabar is like the hub for football, while Delta is like the hub right now for athletics. And I can tell you there's a synergy between Delta, Calabar, and the presidency on sports development.
What about sports administration?
That's what I'm telling you. You have an egghead there, and now you have brought in a leg, but you're somebody that is so passionate as the Director General of Sports. So the man is just getting it right, and I just think we should support him.
Well, that doesn't still answer the question as to whether or not we're also looking for disabled athletes, people who can, most of the talent hunt has been focused on mostly able-bodied athletes and people who can compete in the Olympics.
What I told you right now is that there are some states, what you say the National Sports Commission do not have athletes of their own. They rely on the states and local counties, local government. For example, in Delta State, we have a lot of disabled athletes. We take care of them. They are employed. They have a life. They have training program. They go on tours. So also other states. And all these are in concert with the National Sports Commission. And what's the National Sports Commission? Under the presidency. So it doesn't have to be directly when you say Delta State is doing this. Anything that we are doing, for example, in 2 days' time, we're having the Grand Prix. It's one of the biggest sporting events in the continent of Africa. We're having it in Warri. Only yesterday, we had about 7-8 athletes coming from the United States. Again, whatever you are doing, you should also know that you have the blessing of the presidency, and they know exactly what you are doing.
All right, but do we have a national sports development plan such that you say, well, in so amount of time for football, for tennis, for basketball, for athletics, this is a national plan, and this is how it should go, both from the grassroots level right to the elite level?
Yeah, you see, that's exactly what they are doing. First, they are trying to fine-tune what is called the National Sports Commission. They are trying to tidy up the paperwork. Because the National Sports Commission, as it is supposed to have catchment areas where you get out these athletes. For example, if you go to North Central, you're supposed to have the mile, the distant races and all those stuff. If you come to the Southwest, you have the farm boys sports, lawn tennis, table tennis. You go to the Niger Delta, the South-South. You have swimming, other aquatic sports, wrestling, and all those areas. Now, how do you harmonize them? How do you give them a future? What we've done in Delta is, for example, we are bringing out like schools of excellence. In the next few weeks, we are going to be bringing out the Delta State Institute of Sports. And the Institute of Sports is meant to do what? You catch them, you groom them, you give them life in academics and life in sports. And I believe that's what they are doing. And the first thing that you should understand the president is getting right now is having the leadership in National Sports Commission. The square peg in square hole. Normally you have to have a very good minister and maybe a director general that is 40, but these two people are extremely passionate about sports development. So he has gotten it right there. Again, it trickles down. So how do we get these people? Now we know that in catchment, in terms of athletics, is a major selling point worldwide. You go to areas like Delta, you come to Lagos, you come to some few urban cities. Combat sports, you go to the southeast. And I can tell you 100%, the minister is working, the minister and the chairman of the National Sports Commission is working on this. And like I keep saying, in sports, you do not expect results immediately. You cannot get results immediately. you first need to do what? You discover.
That's when if you have a plan.
Yes. That's what I'm telling you, that they have a plan. You discover, you train, and training encapsulates conditioning, priming, and with all kinds of training. And it can take 2, 3, 4, 5 years. That's why I can tell you for free that in the next Olympics, maybe you might struggle to get 1, 2, 3 gold medals. But the one after now, yes, Nigeria can raise its head high and say, this is what we can get, and prayerfully we'll get it.
You said, well, we should just de-emphasize the victory of AFCON, but we still have to look at it to see if what you've just highlighted is as a result of that victory. Did we plan towards it, or we stumbled on victory?
You see, in sports, there's always an element of luck, and that's why I say the name good luck has been following us in this country, so we should always support this man. But I can also tell you that, one, they had the best training. They had the best equipment. They were not denied of any of their emoluments, any of their privileges, any of their wages. They were all given return ticket, everything. So what do you call that? That's what's called strategic planning in sports. When you manage your funds, you give them quality training, you give them quality equipment, and all those were provided for them.
I'm actually tempted to
so
ask
you can't tell us, for example, that we stumbled into it.
Well, I'm tempted to ask you if truly there's politics in sports, because once upon a time we had stories about, well, catchment areas and those that were actually qualified to represent the country. We actually asked to stay back because we needed to, well, go around the country and pick good hands that would fly the flags. Is that still the
No, that's not it. In 100 meters, you cannot beat it, for example. You breast the tape first. If the first 5, if they are all, everybody's running and the first 3 are deltas, if they breast the tape first, it's clear. So apply. So in sports, what you try to do is to pick the best, irrespective of where you come from. We try to isolate what's called quota system. I don't think there's anything like quota system.
Because you're a politician, so one is tempted to ask you such questions because sometimes it looks like some of your likes also play politics.
Why not?
Sports.
Yeah.
And what if it doesn't give you the results?
No, you see, what you try to do if you want to make any meaning in sports, you isolate politics completely. Politics, what is politics? Politics is not being straight. And in sports, you have to be straight. You have to have a plan, a strategy. And for you to achieve that, you need to concentrate. Politics can be diversionary, and you have distraction. But sports is straight. Because you cannot, for example, say, I give you an example, when we're going to start up the club called Warriors, the governor came, when he came on in 2007, he started the club and said, as big as Delta State, you would have a club in the Premier League. And I said to His Excellency, it's not as if we can have a club in the Premier League. But you see, there are some political players and there are some real players. So what do I mean by that? I said, before you start anything, politicians will send note, this is my cousin, he must be in the team, this is my this one. He said, is that the case? I said, yes, Your Excellency. He said, okay. I said, if you give us the permission to say that if anybody brings a note, we tear that note or tear that card and you protect us. We'll give you a club in the Premier League. Then we'll only have the best. They said, well, that's certainly what I will stand for. And he stood for it. So when they were bringing notes, I'll tell the coach, tell the note. They will cry to me. I said, no, go and tell His Excellency. So the man, Excellency, now saw me one day and said, so what you said that was right? I said, yes. And that year, Warrior was getting promotion into the Premier League. And the name Warrior has become a watershed in the history of Nigeria today.
Speaking about the Premier League, I mean, all of these successes which you say we've achieved, don't you think they will be somewhat tainted if we cannot have a national league with all the glitz and glamour?
Another innovation that this government has done through the Sports Commission and through the Nigeria Football Federation is the League Management Committee, headed by no less a personality, Unduka Irabo.
But it's been dogged with a lot of controversy.
I don't think so. It's just people that do not feel comfortable with his posture. And his posture, people like us, people like us understand him, understand the game, understand the theatrics, and understand that he really wants to develop football. If you don't look at Irabo, you know that he doesn't need anything from you. He wants to make a change. He feels that this is the change that we need. And truly, really, he wants to effect it. So some people are not comfortable with it. And they will come with all kinds of stories, this is that. Do you know how much sports earn in this thing? Do you know how much is being given to Nigerian Premier League by the broadcast partners? It is preposterous compared to what they even give to countries like Kenya and Ghana. Because there are so many, I use the word Nigerian factor. So but all those are the factors he's trying to, and it's being supported by the Nigerian Football Federation and the National Sports Commission, and people like us that are genuine stakeholders believe in him and believe in the league management committee. So and we're also appealing using this medium that let them give this guy, because the truth is the league is the future of Nigerian football. If we get it wrong, we'll get Nigerian football wrong. If we get it right, we'll get Nigerian football right.
So what do we expect?
It should be supported.
What do we expect? I mean, do the people expect within a certain time frame we should get a National League, the stadium in good shape, such that Nigerians can actually watch these matches on television?
It's just starting, and when it's starting, there are what's called teething problems. So, but I can assure you, when Nduka is leaving and his team, Nigerian football would have been placed in a pedestal where everybody will see and appreciate.
Well, before we close this, Chamberlain, we're talking about a little bit of politics. I wanted to ask you, because politicians have actually caused a whole lot of headache for most Nigerians, and the recent one is with the INEC asking everyone to sheathe their swords. Perhaps let's hear you on this towards 2015.
Yeah, you should not thought my first calling is in politics. I'm a political scientist, so I'm not going to shy away from that. Well, if INEC has the statutory power to do that, I think I will align myself with them completely, because I think what should speak for government or governance or governors right now is what they can show, their programs, their policies, the roads, the infrastructures, the schools, what they've been able to impact on the people. That should be their selling point right now. Not pasting posters, not hitting the polity unnecessarily, not doing things that are inimical to the growth and development of the country. So I can tell you that for free. And I also want to appeal, using this medium, to Nigerians that there's nobody that can turn any polity around in a day. Even if you bring Obama and David Cameron, they need time. So the president needs time to turn this country around. I can tell you, he has a zeal, he has a passion, and is determined. If you look at the various sectors, and his own is to sustain it using, it's not just doing it and wanting to live. He wants something that is more sustainable. So he wants a road that if you build this road, in 10 years, the road will still be as it is. An airport, if you build this airport, in 10 years,
quickly, he has asked us to rate him and score him.
Yes.
How would you score his administration in the last 2 years?
In sports, I'll give him 95% in sports. Generally, in terms of stability of the Naira, that's under 80%. Road construction, that minister has done exceedingly well. I'll give him 70%. Averagely, I'll give him about 75-80%. I'm not saying because I'm PDP, I'm saying it. Listen, let us base our argument on facts. Some people are just dogmatic about Jonathan. They don't just want to believe that this is the man. And that's why you see there's this perception in the Niger Delta that why are we being perceived as second-class citizens? Because for Nigeria to be a first-class nation, the country must not harbor second-class citizens. And if you look at it, the Niger Delta is the sector that lays the golden egg. So what is good for the goose, they also perceive is good for the gander. So I also appeal to them. That's the perception. I might not buy that perception because I have friends all over the country. And I also believe the only thing I tell them is we must live as one. Forget what Awolowo said in 1947, Nigeria is a mere geographical expression. It goes beyond that. God has destined us to live together. God has destined to keep us together. And God knows why He's keeping us together. Some countries have only 200,000-300,000 persons. But we are 165 million people. And people should believe in this country. I can tell you, just Google it. Nigeria is dangerous. Nigeria is not among the first 30 most dangerous nations in the world. Okay. Nigeria is corrupt. Nigeria is not the first 50 nations that are the most corrupt in this country. We need time in this country to grow. But we should be passionate about it. It's not everybody that must be president at a time.
Okay. Amaju Peneke, the Executive Chairman, Delta State Sports Commission.